And as Nick said, I'm Kenton Brazel. I'm a senior field engineer with Run Safe Security. So I spend a lot of time working with customers, both in pre and post sale support, and as well as running through some of the demonstrations like we'll be doing today. So before we swap to the Alchemist portal online, I wanted to highlight what Alchemist repo offerings currently were, as well as what we'll be showing in the demo. Simply put, Alchemist repo takes the burden off the customer of integrating Alchemist source protections into common open source IT infrastructure applications and gives the user a drag and drop replacement. While integrating Alchemist source during build time is very minimal effort, it's not uncommon that customers are unable or unwilling to modify their build process. Alchemist repo images remove that concern, giving you protected software that is functionally identical right out of the box. While this turnkey integration is most mature for DevSecOps Docker environments, we are rapidly expanding these offerings to other platforms such that you can see here. Software components from web infrastructure such as Apache Web Server or Node.js, to databases such as Redis or Postgres, to development tools such as Python or Bash are all susceptible to attack. The sheer nature of open source means that the attacker has full insight with unlimited resources into finding a flaw that can be used against anyone running the same version. Alchemist repo introduces binary diversity that destroys attackers' kill chains and removes the proven #1 threat to compiled open source code. This is a growing list of offerings and will be expanded both in application and platform. And if you have any questions or interest in something in particular, please let us know. So this is a quick view at exactly what is required to integrate and use Alchemist repo images from a Docker perspective. As you can see at the top, there's an example Docker file with corresponding Docker build and run commands for Apache Web Server. At the bottom, you can see the integration of Alchemist repo and the modifications needed to be made highlighted in green. Changing the from line tells the Docker file where to pull the image from, which is now pointing to the Alchemist repo. Important note, the original image of the software based off version has the same functionality, and every aspect of your environment will be maintained with Alchemist repo images operating and performing the same as the original vulnerable image. Inserting your license key found on the Alchemist portal is the only other requirement for operation. I encourage you all to check out the website, alchemist.runsafesecurity.com, not only to review the demos we'll preview today, but also to review these instructions and try these offerings on your own. Well, we can spend all day singing our own praises. We know that getting the capability in the hands of the customers is really what makes the difference. So lastly, I wanted to provide a quick visual preview of what we will be going over in the demo on the Alchemist portal. And it's a live environment laid out in a multi-step process focused on Docker and various types of open source applications. The goal is to not only show the ease of use while providing instructions for your own applications, but to show that the hardened software works the same as the original. In step 1, we'll review ways it can be integrated into Docker before quickly shifting to step 2, which will show the base Docker run command of a Python image to run a hello world script. For step 3, we'll increase the complexity to show integration into a simple Apache Web Server Docker file, which will render an example HTML file in a side-by-side comparison. Finally, step 4 will integrate the use of 2 protected images. Nginx is a reverse proxy for the Apache Web Server through the use of the Docker Compose setup. This final step will not only show that build complexity is no issue, but also that hardened images can function easily in conjunction with each other. With that in mind, you can see the expanded use of Alchemist repo to your entire stack of compiled software with no risk of undesirable effects. But what we're going to be looking at today is how easy it is to really use Alchemist repo. So I'll jump into this one. And sort of the first thing I want to do really quick is kind of go over what you're looking at on the screen. On the left, you've got helpful tips and shortcut information, as well as the guide itself for if you're walking through this on your own. The upper right is a text editor for actually editing all the code that you'll be using for the demo, and the lower right is a live terminal. So, and I point all that out mostly to point that that this is a live demo that's actually being run on a server. So nothing is pre-canned. It's all operating as you would on your own environment and through your own VMs and such. So this first step really is just kind of going over the highlights again that we've already kind of touched on. We're going to be looking at Docker run, Docker file, and Docker compose, and integrating Alchemist repo images in all three of those stages. So going to the second step, you'll see kind of a side-by-side example with a Docker run command using Python for actually just running this print hello world statement. And you can see the first Docker run command is going to pull the image real quick. I guess it timed out from when I was running this earlier, so this may take an extra second here to pull the original Python 3.7.7 Buster image from Docker Hub. And then what it'll do here is on this next command, once we're done here, we'll actually pull the image from our Alchemist repository, the same image, just hardened with Alchemist, and show that it operates the same way. Let me try this, actually. Looks like it's getting hung. At least you know that it's a live demo. Oh. Yeah, it should only take a second anyway. But yeah, some of the components we'll be modifying later. The Docker file, the Docker compose file for steps 3 and 4. You'll see some of those stored here, and then we'll actually use this hello world HTML that we're going to use to render. And you can see that we are now running. So click on this image. It's going to pull down again from our run safe repository and run and operate in the same way. I wonder. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next step here. It'll take an extra second or two, but start briefing this kind of what we're doing in this step. And this is looking at the Docker file itself, and we're going to be building this image and then running that image in a container and actually rendering that on this 8080 port. And I'll actually show after we run it, show that it's working and operating just as it would normally. And then we're going to rebuild the image and with Alchemist, and I'll show how we're doing that. But as you can see, it just finished here and operating again the same way, printing hello world. So let's go ahead and start the Docker build image, and that went quickly as expected. And then we'll actually run it and show that it's operating by clicking that link to open up on port 8080 here. So now we're gonna modify it, this Docker file, which was the original Docker file we built here. We're gonna change the from line by clicking that link, which will point to our Alchemist repo version of the image, and we'll perform the build. Exact same command, just integrated with Alchemist. And now we're going to actually run it, and we're going to add the license key as an environment variable during the run command, and you'll see that it runs on port 8081. And we'll click on this just to show that it's running, and you can see port 8081. So again, operating functionally the exact same way, just protected from attack. So going to the final step and actually getting slightly more complicated is looking at the Docker compose file. And a lot of people who use Docker will know that this is a common way to stand up multiple components of Docker images. And so we recognize that, and we want to show it that it's easy to operate in that space as well. So the first thing we'll do is spin up Nginx and Apache web server by running this Docker Compose file that you see right here, which will create the network and start everything. And then we'll be able to actually click on this and it'll render that same HTML. This link will show it port 8082 here, so you can see that it is indeed a different file. And now we're going to open the Docker Compose file, and then we're going to add the run safe images, both replacements for Apache and replacement for Nginx, and you'll see the changes reflected here. And then we're going to add as the environment variable the license key, pass that in as part of the Docker Compose, and then we're going to run the Docker Compose up command of the hardened version of this Docker Compose file. And actually, I'll go in here to the HTML just to show that it is rendering it, and modify that, and then pull it up, and you'll see that it actually, well, it didn't get that final change. Must not have updated. There you go. And you can see that it's actively using the hardened components that we just passed in through the Docker Compose file. So with that, hopefully you understood, other than the little slight slowdown at the beginning, exactly how easy it is to add Alchemist protections and all these different types of variations.